guys? This is Jacob Green, Music Universal Language Podcast. This is the 7th episode. And please welcome to the podcast one of my longtime friends and music collaborators, Mr. Matt Pickart. What's up, buddy?
How you doing?
Good, man. Good to see you.
It's good to see you.
Sounds like you're busy as usual.
Yeah, there's a lot of performances going on, a lot of teaching. It's audition season right now for Webster, where I'm at, and Class, this music festival I do.
Cool. So you're doing like winter auditions for summer?
Yeah, for summer and then fall, for Webster. Yeah.
It's similar to how I kind of apply for festivals. A lot of them do them wintertime or concert series, but we'll get into all that good stuff. Yeah, man, it's good to see you. I just did a little intro on how we have known each other forever. And
it's been a long time.
Collaborated multiple times, even as far back, as, trying to rap over someone else's instrumental or something while we're...
Water.
Yeah. Along with a lot of other goofy names that probably lasted like a week or something, or who knows.
Timmy and the Toothpicks.
I remember the Ill Force, and that was...
Oh, the Ill Force.
Beastie Boys, heavily Beastie Boys influence. But,
It's been coming up on 30 years, right? Did we meet when we were 5?
I believe we met, we were in kindergarten, 5.
Yeah.
And, I don't really recall, how quickly you just, become better friends. You probably just become quick friends back then. But either way, we were hanging out a bit, probably the time we were 6, 7, 8, all the time.
Yeah.
Hanging out on weekends at different people's, at each other's houses and whatnot. But, yeah, and so let's just get into a little bit of your background. You've actually been playing music since you were 3, and it's kind of a family tradition of sorts. Yeah, your whole family.
Both my parents are retired string educators now. They're still teaching, but they're retired from their public school orchestra jobs. They're both cellists, and even my grandma was actually a public school orchestra teacher as well. Oh. My older brother used to play violin.
Is that on your dad's side, Grandma?
Indeed, yeah.
Well, from Madison.
From Madison, that's right. Yeah,
cool.
I think you met her a couple times, Grandma Margaret.
I probably did.
And my mom's twin sister plays cello as well. Both my parents and my Aunt Molly all went to UW-Madison together. My grandma went to UW-Madison for music, and so did I.
And your brother was mainly violin?
Yeah, my brother played violin. He was very talented. For him, it came really easy. I look back at pictures when we were kids, and he's set up perfect, and I'm all janky.
It's more of a natural for him.
Yeah, well, he stopped lessons when he went to college. He still plays once in a while. He kept up his music in college. He was director of an a cappella group when he was in college. But
that's awesome. How old was he when he started? Because
he was 2.
Okay, and he's 4 years older than you.
I don't know how you do that. Yeah.
So by the time you started when you were 3, correct?
Yeah.
And so he's already 7, and he had been kind of playing for 5 years.
Right. He was my hero growing up. That's one of the big reasons I pushed myself as much as I could on the violin. Well, I could have pushed myself more when I was a kid, for sure.
Well, yeah, but I remember your mom being pretty disciplined on the lessons. Well, yeah, with the violin. Yeah. She'd play the piano, keep you in time.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes, yeah. We're excited now. My brother's daughter is playing piano. She's 13. So
nice.
Hopefully carrying on the Pickart family music tradition. Yeah.
Seems like it'd be hard not to, man, with the amount that's in your family. That's crazy. So, yeah, you come from a very rich instrument musical background, more classical.
Yeah.
But still, this has been engraved in you in a way since a very young age. And when do you think when did you feel like you were, I don't know, comfortable or starting to get good with it? Was it before people like me who started around 10?
Do I feel comfortable and getting good right now?
You know what I'm saying?
No, we were talking about that earlier. It's the more you know, the less you know.
That's.
There's been pivotal moments in my development where I all of a sudden I was I have to do this, or I've reached this stage, but it just keeps happening all the time.
Well, what do you? Because I just remember like I said, most people when they join school orchestra, it's right around 10, and you do it like right before you're
That's when you
about to,
did.
right, yeah, and right before you're about to go into middle school. So you kind of do a year in elementary, 5th grade. I mean, all schools are different back in the day, but were you kind of like? I mean, obviously, I remember you being better because you had been playing. So like, I don't know. Even then, I suppose you had something. You're probably that much more comfortable with it, obviously. Then.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being in orchestra class with you and other friends, and
Roberto.
I would try to help, here and there because
I remember that. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I remember our buddy John Dolman played cello, and I remember one year we had the solo ensemble contest. I think it was 7th grade, and he hadn't practiced at all, and I helped try to teach him the cello piece, but I'm not a cellist, So.
Oh man.
Yeah. And then he started taking lessons from my mom after that. But no, I knew pretty early on. I remember when I was 7 years old, I saw a performance of Itzhak Perlman play Brahms Violin Concerto with Rockford Symphony. My mom played in that orchestra, and
Nice.
he's one of the best violinists that's ever lived. He's a huge inspiration. So getting to see him and hearing him play that piece is still one of my favorite concertos, and it just blew me away. I mean, after that, I was 7, and I was practicing
Whoa.
like 3 or 4 hours a day after that concert, but it only lasted for like a month, and then my parents had to bribe me with candy and whatever after
Did
that.
you practice on
Nintendo
the
games.
weekends? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy. 7 years old. Huh. That's awesome, man. So
Yeah,
pivotal
I've always
moment.
known that I wanted to do music, I guess. I don't know.
Do you think like violin's always been the most that stood out, or in general? That's
Well,
what
I
you were
can't say
taught
that
on?
anymore because I really started to get serious about viola at the
Mm.
end of my master's when I was like 24 or so. So that's been a huge part of my career since then. I am all but dissertation for my doctorate in viola. So I did my terminal degree in viola actually. But yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
nice.
violin, growing up, we took guitar lessons at the same time. You took a little bit of guitar. I took bass guitar, and I took piano, and I
Yeah, I was gonna
sang a
say.
little bit. But I think, you said I come from a classical background. I think that's totally true. I've always had an interest in non-classical and trying to do as many musical things as possible. So,
Well, and I think that was another thing, like with your brother. Not only you said he was kind of more of a natural at violin, but being that he was 4 years older than us, 4 grades.
yeah, 4.5 years older than me. Yeah.
And so I just remember, we're like 8, 9, 10. He's 12, 13, 14. He was really into modern music that like influenced us. I remember like hearing a lot of
Yes.
Beastie Boys riding around with. Well, this is later when he has a car when he's 16, but just from his room, just hearing. I remember this like Soundgarden and Beastie Boys.
Yeah, so
and Green
we
Day
were
or
10, I think 9 or 10, and Mike was a teenager, and he went to Media Play. You remember that store?
oh yeah. Shout
And my
out.
parents
Rest in
let him
peace.
get some cassette tapes, and I was upset because I wasn't allowed to get cassette tapes. So he gave me 3 of his that he bought. My first 3 cassette tapes I ever got were Beastie Boys, License to Ill, Soundgarden, Supernova, and Green Day, Dookie.
Nice. I remember you having those for sure. And then by the time you were buying them, you at least bought another Beastie Boys album or 10, and the next Green Day. I remember you had the Insomniac Green Day, the next one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But yeah, and so I think that it's almost like he kept a healthy dose of I don't know, modern influence, even though we were getting into our own stuff at the same time. But
Yeah.
I had the same thing. When you have an older brother, you're most likely into the same stuff as him, especially if you get along with him or look up to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was the same way because my brother was huge into the gangster rap.
I remember
R&B.
getting really into that from Josh. Getting into Coolio and Skee-Lo and Bone
yeah.
Thugs and Harmony and like
Oh hell yeah, Tupac and yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, it was almost like and even I think just growing up in a place like Beloit, you just also it's almost easier to get into just that type of modern music because it's just popular amongst I don't know the whole town or at school and whatnot. So it's almost I don't know. Did you ever feel like classical music was just were you never really into it the same way, or you didn't appreciate it until later, sort of thing?
Oh no, I always appreciated it
since you were 7, since the guy, or in general.
I mean, look, when I was in like my mom's womb, she was playing Bach cello suites, so like it was just like it was a special thing for me. It's always been a great thing. And I think in my head, I always thought, well, there's classical music and then there's all these other types of music. And more what I've tried to do over my life and my career is that there's just good music. There's good music and there's bad music. I think Louis Armstrong said that. There's 2 types of music. There's good music and there's bad music. And
it doesn't matter the genre. Yeah.
Right. You can have an incredible Brahms symphony and you can have an incredible tune by Radiohead. And it's like, there's so much good music out there. And, the more you know, the less you know. It's like we can spend our entire life just listening to new music that you and I have never heard, and we'll still just scrape the surface. Like,
oh yeah,
you know,
and then that's not even old artists that we don't know. You know, that's not including new people. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's always something you haven't heard in a sense.
Right. And especially like in the classical music industry, there's an obsession with Western European art form and a bunch of old dead white guys or old white guys. But I've been really interested in like, you know, learning more about Eastern European Roma music and like Arabic music and Indian music and African music and rhythm. And it's like, there's so many other types of music. And if you just study classical, it's like you kind of have your blinders on. So for me as a classical musician on the violin and viola, I've tried to incorporate a lot of other styles. I mean, I started playing with different varieties, let's just say different varieties of punk rock bands and groups in high school on violin after I was, you know, trying to do some on bass guitar and guitar a little bit. And then I started playing with a singer-songwriter in college. I started playing bluegrass. You remember my friend Dave Sewell?
Yep.
Then I did a bunch of indie rock, and then I started getting into jazz. Right now I'm playing in a mariachi group. I played country, I played tango, flamenco, and I love all kinds of music, you know? It's like...
That's really cool, yeah, and the fact that you could appreciate all at a younger age. I mean, I guess when you're young, you're kind of just like, you know, you're exposed to what you're exposed to, you know, and especially, you know, we didn't have the internet back then, or... Like I said, we're influenced by what our brothers like and like what's popular in media, and then you also have this huge classical, you know. Did your parents ever introduce you to other stuff outside of that much besides? You know,
I've always wondered why they didn't. They had a really nice, impressive record collection growing up. Some classic groups, a lot of Beatles, stuff like that. But it's interesting. We actually didn't listen to a lot of music at home.
Yeah, I don't remember that actually. It's a good point.
And I think back on it now, and now that I'm a musician, there are those moments where it's like, okay, I'm teaching or I'm playing for like 8 or 10 hours a day, and I want to go home and I just want it silent. I always kind of wondered why maybe. What we did do though is my parents took me to so many live concerts, and I think that's so important. I got to see a variety of artists from all different styles, and my parents are still attending live concerts all the time, and that's kind of an obsession of mine too. Sometimes I don't have time to go to everything, but I still do. I make myself stressed or busy just because I want to see some live music.
Oh man, I miss doing that too, man. I totally get it.
Yeah. So we didn't listen to, I feel like we didn't listen to a lot of recordings, but they took me to a lot of live concerts. And I was just always at concerts. I was like helping my parents set up for their concerts, or like just doing my homework while they're in rehearsal or whatever.
Yeah. Well, man, it's just, music is just such a huge part of like your whole family's life. And I guess that does make sense by the time you get home and all you've been doing is music all day, or in, you know, our case, or maybe your brothers, we would turn on modern music. I mean, I guess that was the most we would actually play, and then, like you said, it'd be from a cassette, maybe later CDs. But Yeah, that's interesting, man. But it makes sense, you know. So cool. I think that yeah, and just being I don't know, I guess allowing, cuz like, well, what got you into bass? Did you want to learn modern music, or that was kind of, we were shifting into the punk rock scene and getting out of the hip hop scene? I think we both kind of were
Yeah.
the ska
Yeah.
punk.
Actually, I mean, I have to thank Chris Behrens, who's now the high school BMHS high school band director and does jazz band.
Nice.
He approached one of my parents. For a while, my mom was teaching at Aldridge. There was like 2 years where she was at Aldridge subbing for Jerry Fraze. And I can't remember which parent he had talked to, but, you know, the Barons knew about my family and vice versa. So he knew I was coming to Aldridge soon, and he needed a new bass guitarist for his jazz band. And he knew that I knew how to read bass clef for piano. So he had suggested that I start bass guitar, and I got really into it. And actually, the strange story is, like, I never actually played for Chris Behrens. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say
at the same time, Elise Pogley started bass, and like I think it could have been a scheduling thing where like I couldn't be an orchestra and jazz band at the same time. But I actually ended up starting to play in the high school jazz band in 8th grade. I played for 2 years, and I never got serious enough about bass guitar. Like, I never was able to come up with my own walking bass lines. I could read music well, and I learned a lot on it, but I never like really dug in enough on it. I still have it. I still have my classical guitar, and like every once in a while I want to get it out and do some stuff.
Well, and whatever we did, that was kind of the only that modern band sort of thing you did with it besides maybe jamming occasionally, or I don't remember.
I played in like I actually played bass guitar in like 4 or 5 bands in high school. I played in one with
cool.
Dustin Thalman and John Horvath for a little bit, and oh boy,
did you guys do like
what's
the
name
high
of
school
the drummer?
shows?
He was really into art. He was like he was senior when we were freshmen. Kalyan.
Oh yeah. I think I know.
Kalyan was in that too. It was called. We never came up with a name, so it was just called TBA. And then actually, even before that, I played in a band with Bill McCauley, Wade Young, and Kalyan Roy. It was like a funk blues group. It was a lot of like Stevie Ray Vaughan. So that was really exciting for me. Maybe played in another group too. And then there was a brief while, I think my sophomore, junior year, I tried to play electric guitar in a group. George Soule was in it briefly.
Nice.
We might have done like one battle of the bands. I don't remember, but I kind of stopped. Oh, go ahead.
Did you get to perform with each one of those bands, like one of the high school shows, or was it just jamming more?
It was mostly like we met and we worked on tunes. There weren't a lot of live performances, which is disappointing. Right. I mean, the group I was in with, I remember with Kalyan and Bill and Wade, that Bill and Wade were like ridiculous guitarists. They took
I remember them being.
Pete.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember. Well, they did something with. They had their own band too. They did something else, like at the Big Kahuna or something. One of the high school.
That might have been like
so
when
I thought
like,
maybe
I got kicked out or something. Maybe they had like a senior bass guitarist.
I was hoping maybe you like played one of those cool ones, you know.
Maybe
you're in there just long
but
enough.
I feel like I'm getting old enough where like I don't remember everything. But like you mentioned that, and I was like, oh yeah, I was in these other bands. And then
I would, yeah. I guess that's why I don't remember, because if I would have saw you probably live, it would have resonated more. Because I mean, even Nifty, we did what, 2 shows?
I mean, even Anthony Tran, Borderline, he did Big Kahuna.
What?
You don't remember that? Was it Big Kahuna?
What Borderline? What? I don't remember this at all.
You don't remember Borderline?
No.
Oh man,
if it's like later, I stopped going after I was a freshman or sophomore.
Oh, it was like junior or senior year. He had like a Weezer cover band for a little while, and Anthony Tran sang.
No shit, Weezer cover band? That's kind of cool.
It's called Borderline or something. Yeah. It was a brief moment and a snapshot in his life.
Damn.
No, it was like 10 years had gone by. I hadn't touched my bass guitar really from the time I was 18, and I started playing in this group, Matt Murchison Mutiny, You said we can link recordings. I'll send you one because it's really cool stuff. Matt Murchison, I would say he's in one of the top 5 euphonium players in the world. He lived in Pittsburgh when I was there. I joined this group with him and his wife, and the idea was like everybody was it was an eclectic group, all different instruments, different styles. So Matt played euphonium, tuba, trumpet. His wife played all the flutes. We had crazy jazz trombone player we had a trombonist who also played jazz piano, and then drums. And I joined because I played violin and viola. So shortly after I joined, Matt was like, well, do you play anything else? And I was like, well, I used to play bass guitar. He's like, okay, well, I'll send you some charts. And I was like, I'm not really sure I can do it. He sent me a couple, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's fine. So I ended up, within a couple months, I was playing half bass guitar in the band. I hadn't played in 10 years. So that was really fun. There was a little brief time where I was playing bass guitar again, and I really tried to practice and work on that. We did a little tour. We played at a couple of colleges. We made a couple of recordings. I think there's one recording I'm playing bass guitar on. Yeah.
That's cool, man. Okay, so 10 years later, when did you stop? When you were 15 or 16? Or
I think I played bass guitar all the way until I was like 17 or 18, yeah.
Oh, so this was when you were 27, 28. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow. Cool. Yeah, that's right. You were still, that was before you left and went to Michigan. Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't remember how many shows Nifty actually did. I remember we did the one where Chris bailed on us and Mark had to play drums on the spot.
Oh, what show was that?
That was the first one, the New Year's Eve party at Pete's.
Yeah.
At Pete's.
2000. Yeah. Okay, I mean, that's the
and I think we did
rings in my head, like that was our first big show.
And I think we did a Battle of the Bands at Aldridge.
We probably did, yeah.
With Mark again, because Chris just basically bailed, our drummer. He recorded our album for us. We used his equipment, and then he wouldn't play live because he's too much. But yeah, all I really think about, whatever the hell we were, it was, I just thought it was really cool because I was doing pretty, what do you want to call it? Just like average what you do punk rock, like palm muting and power chords, and you would add these.
Dude, you had that palm muting down. I didn't know how to do that. I was like, how do you do that?
But you were doing these like pop, like funky bass lines on top of it, and that was kind of a cool original thing. I thought, just like, and it's more from your end. And then we had the jam song. Where I was just like,
oh yeah,
and that was another one that was like, that wasn't punk, it was like, it was weird, it was out there. I have those recordings and cut to no video of that.
It's been a long time, man, since I've listened to any of that. Yeah,
I just think it was cool. You put your stamp on it, because like if it was just like an average punk rock bass player, like pretty much everyone else in the scene, it would have just been different songs. You know what I mean? I don't know. Well,
you put your stamp on it too, man. It was a fun time. It was a good group, and that was a big part of our growing up for sure.
It was a short-lived, but it was like, I feel like it happened quickly because it was like, bam, you're on bass. I learned enough to play power chords and palm mute, and we're already writing shit. And then, dude, your brother helped us actually write the Pizza Pit one.
Well, that was like we kind of coined that with John Dahlman, right? He came up with the lyrics, right?
Yeah.
There was like a month where John was in the group just because he came up with that. And they were like, "What are you gonna play?" He's like, "I don't know."
Cause we were kind of like, it was like us two was the band more than anything, and it was like John came in, then Chris, and I don't know. It was short lived, but it was cool. I feel like it was impactful because it was like really my first time writing and recording something original, even if it was what it was. It was like a beginning of sorts. You know what I'm saying?
And
of course I was doing it with you. You were like my best friend at the time, and we still are.
Yeah, man.
But what were you saying?
Wasn't it right before we did Nifty? Didn't we have a group, Timmy and the Toothpicks, like really briefly?
I think that was kind of what we were doing with John.
We started Nifty, and then John wasn't part of it.
Kinda. And John just like didn't play anything, or he didn't like play drums. And I think I just became better friends with Chris Spangler. And then it was just like a matter of, I don't know, we just went over there and jammed, because I think we like recorded all that like shortly after teaching him how to play everything. Do you remember that, being in that room and like having a little crappy computer mic record the whole drum set?
Oh man,
it was
I'm
like,
blanking on this. We did it all at Chris's.
Yeah, it was in his basement. It was at Chris's basement. He had this little white microphone that was just like, you know, I don't know, what do you call it, like a room mic or something, like an old ass computer mic. And I don't know, it was just an experience. But
you remember the super mints, the super confidential mints, man? They were a big group at that time.
Oh yeah, no, they were
the for me.
They were the leaders in. That's, I had Dave on here, and he was talking about, you know, he briefly joined the Battletoads, and the Battletoads were kind of like, I don't know what you call them, like their sister band or whatever, because it was like, you know, a little brother singing it, and then, but then the scene almost kind of ended when Mark joined the Supermints, and by then, like, pretty much all the other bands had broken up or whatnot. But
you know, Ben went on to get an opera degree.
Yeah, it's funny. When I actually played with his other band, or I played 2 shows in Minnesota with his band Taj Raj, and he was going to get a lawyer degree then, or law school.
Yeah.
So
I haven't talked to him in years, but yeah.
But yeah, so that's, you know, whatever, the brief punk scene. So yeah, you were kind of bouncing around in high school with the bass, a little bit guitar. I remember you took like classical guitar lessons later.
Yeah, so our teacher that we both took from, Jason Cicero, and I don't know where he is now. It's been years since we talked. He lived in the same house that DeAndre Davidson lived in.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
Moved.
Yeah.
Right on the corner. Was that Austin and Lee Lane? Yeah.
I remember that.
So we used to go over to that house and take lessons. I took bass guitar, I think, for 2-3 years, but Jason Cicero's main thing was classical guitar. And I felt like I wanted to learn that. It was kind of a combination of, like, I do classical music as a violin, and then that's his main thing, and I've been playing bass guitar. So I took a year of classical guitar, and it was great, actually. I really enjoyed it. I still have my classical, haven't played in a while, still have some of the books. It's something that even when I went to undergrad, actually, I talked to UW-Madison about a couple things. I did my undergrad in violin performance, but I originally was thinking, like, I wanted to do performance and education. And they said it would take more time. And then I also asked about doing it with classical guitar and or voice. But that's just me. I've always had too many interests. And they were like, no, you got to focus on one thing. So kind of just stopped guitar then. Yeah.
So wait, but you were doing it when you were a senior in high school, or no? This is
I might have stopped lessons by then. I might have stopped lessons by then, but I had taken, actually, my senior year, I briefly took composition lessons, and I had a senior recital. I wrote a piece on classical guitar just called Etude in G. I still play it every once in a while.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so wow. So by the time, before you even got to college, you're already awesome at violin. You played bass for 5 years, 4 years.
And then mediocre or poor at all the other things.
Well, no. Compared to the rest of us in the punk rock scene, there was very few that were exceptional, I suppose you could say. Mark was an incredible drummer. He still is.
Yeah.
But, okay, so then you go to Madison for your first college experience. And what goes on there? You're like still. This is when you start doing viola.
No, I didn't start viola for 6 years after that. It was at the end of my master's.
So you're going to Madison violin for masters, and you.
No, this is just my bachelor's.
Yeah, sorry. And then and you're also meeting more like you said, David Sewell and bluegrassy folks, or different musicians in general.
In Madison, like, I don't know, when I got there, I felt like a small fish in an ocean. Like, in some ways, not to sound like arrogant or anything, like in Beloit, like being a classical violinist, I did feel like there wasn't as much competition when I was younger, just because there weren't a lot of string player kids taking private lessons.
Right.
In Beloit itself, I used to go up to Madison to play in the youth orchestra, and I took lessons there all throughout high school. My main teacher in Beloit was in Fort Atkinson. There's wonderful string teachers in Beloit, but just not a lot of families had the access to be able to take private lessons as well. So when I came to Madison, it's not that I thought I was so great when I came to Madison. What I really respect about my parents is they each made me wait until my last year of their schools to put me concertmaster in the orchestra, because they wanted to highlight, seniors who were talented. So when I came to Madison, I just realized I was I wasn't so hot, I was
It's what do you call
just
it?
Medium or below average. And I remember actually my junior year in high school, there was a big audition for this scholarship through UW-Madison where you get 4 years tuition free. It was through the summer music camp I went to, summer music clinic. And I made it into the finals. I didn't get the scholarship, and I was devastated. Mike, my older brother, actually was one of the alternates, and he could have gone to Madison for free had he played in orchestra the whole time. So I feel like there was a lot of expectation for me to get it, and I didn't get it. And I later ended up teaching at that camp. I just came back again this summer, I think for my 7th year there. So I started teaching there right after my undergrad, and that was a nice kick in the pants because when I came into Madison, I felt like I had so much to learn, and I still feel that way. And I worked my tail off. I feel like when I got to Madison, I really started to learn how to practice more seriously. And I still struggled with that, but by the time I left, I got to be one of the concertmasters of the orchestras. Not that I was the best student. I had a really good audition, and I found out how to work hard there for sure.
Awesome, man. And then did you have you're making good friends with people and other people who are in the same boat, or just people also jam with you and whatnot?
So from a classical music scene still, so I'm teaching music business classes at Webster now, and I frequently mention my quartet. So at the end of my freshman year, I went to this recital and saw one of my violin heroes. He's since passed. He was a senior when I was a freshman. Chase Moore. He's amazing. He unfortunately got some cancer and died pretty young as a string educator in Texas. I went to a senior recital. He played Tchaikovsky violin concerto, Brahms sonata, heavy, super pro rep. And then at the end, his quartet played Super Mario Brothers and Stairway to Heaven. And it blew my mind. I was like, a string quartet can do that. And that was right around the time, I don't know if you remember this group Vitamin C. They were coming out with some pop string or quartet arrangements, and
maybe kind of.
It was just starting to get more popular. I mean, Turtle Island, they're an incredible group. I don't know if you remember Tracy Silverman came to our high school. He was in Turtle Island. They've been around since the 80s, but it was uncommon. They're string quartet that plays jazz. It was uncommon for string quartets to play a lot of non-classical rep. So they were all graduating. They gave me this group, and they were like, here it is. I got the binders, had Beatles tunes in it, all this Nintendo stuff. And we started booking wedding gigs. And I was in charge of this group, started my sophomore year of college, and I stayed for an extra year. So for 4 years, we played about 30 to 50 gigs a year, weddings, mostly corporate events.
Awesome.
And we worked on our arranging in that group. And the 3 other guys that were in that group with me, they're still some of my best friends and biggest influences in music. One was a cellist. We were roommates my sophomore year in college, and then he later lived in a house with me senior year. James Waldo. He went to New York after we were down in Madison. He did 2 grad degrees in New York City. He did a lot of Lincoln Center stuff. He's done heavy stuff. He's really big deal. And then the violinist was this guy, Derek Powell, who's a year younger than us. And for instance, when Mike was a senior in high school, Derek was in 7th grade. They were stand partners in youth orchestra. That's how good this guy was. I remember going to a recital when I was in a 5th grader and Derek was in 6th grade and seeing him play something crazy. And I was like, how do you do that? So in college, we later became friends. He joined the quartet. We played together almost every weekend. I was a groomsman at his wedding a few years back. He went on to Rice, which is a major conservatory in Houston. He was in New World Symphony for 3 years, I think, maybe four. It's one of the top training orchestras in the country. And then he joined Pershing's U.S. Army Orchestra, played a lot of White House events, and now he just got a job in National Symphony in Washington, D.C. also, which is
Awesome.
like even another level up. So, I mean, and then the third guy, Nick Young, was a music major at UW-Milwaukee. We met at this music camp when we were 13. We both played violin and bass guitar.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've met this guy. Yeah, so you guys are the same age.
He was at UW-Milwaukee. He ended up transferring to Madison, and for one reason or another, he ended up majoring in psychology. And he's been a psychology professor at a couple programs now. He's in Milwaukee actually, and he works for UW Medical Centers. He's one of the main doctors in psychology there that kind of does consultations with kids in the greater Milwaukee area, and he's awesome. But but his main musical outlet during his time when he was in Madison, he still played in the orchestra, was our quartet. And actually, Nick did most of the arranging in the group, and we were college roommates for a couple of years too. So they were a huge influence on me. There were so many other students in the music school that have gone on to major careers. I got to play horn sextet, so 2 horn players and a string quartet. One of the horn players is now assistant principal in New York Philharmonic. Somebody that I went to undergrad with. There's been a lot of huge success stories. So meanwhile, it's like I always had this interest in non-classical. We did all the punk rock stuff. My senior year, I got to play with a singer-songwriter, and that continued into my freshman year of college. And then I started checking out this guy, Dave Sewell, who used to play in front of Urban Outfitters on State Street. Nice. He was homeless, and he played in the Grand Ole Opry in the 1940s and 50s. He played guitar, harmonica, he sang. He was just amazing. And I used to go and listen to him. And then when James and we were roommates, we lived by the old, Uno's Pizzeria. It doesn't exist anymore off of State Street. Our sophomore year, we'd walk by him every day. So we just start going out and listening. And James had some folk music background in his history. So he had a bouzouki, an Irish mandolin. And then he started going out and playing with James. So for a while I was listening to them. And then finally they're like, well, Matt, you play fiddle. You should come out, and playing on the street is a whole different thing. Cause it's like, you got to sound good. So people stop and listen, throw money in.
Right.
So, the first long time, I remember it was just like shaky bow and it was pretty bad. But
it's a different experience
for pretty regularly for 4 years. There was one summer where literally we play every single day. We play the farmers market up by Capitol Square.
I've done that. It gets busy, man. Good money. Yeah. Good tips.
He gave me some of my first ever fiddle books that I still have. I still play with Dave. Every time I go back to Madison area, I play with him. He's around 80 now. Maybe over 80. I should know, but he's an incredible guy. He's just, so for me, he was like a huge influence in my non-classical world. And then at the end of college, I played briefly with this group, an indie rock group, Pale Young Gentlemen. Actually, Derek was in that too, the violinist that's now in National Symphony. We had a string quartet that played with them, and we did shows in Milwaukee, Chicago, and Minneapolis, and just kind of go out for the weekend.
That's awesome, man. So you're like continuing to get work while going to school. Music's still just insanely full time for you. Yeah. Well, I guess the combination of all these things is kind of forcing you to up your game more. Like you said, you kind of learned how to practice better, and I would assume, even just being around certain players, or did any of these people kind of teach you how to practice better, or just by observing and playing with them?
What I learned during that time is we would have weekly master classes where our teacher would say things, and then in the class other students would say things. So you'd be in the practice rooms at the music school, and it's you just pop down 2 doors and hey, can you listen to this for a second? And you're always getting feedback from your peers and colleagues. I even like had like a couple informal lessons with some of my friends here and there, just because. I mean, yeah, that's I I think sometimes it's more impactful hearing things from people that are, your peers rather than even your teachers or your professors.
Oh yeah,
So
most definitely. They can just like unintentionally play a bigger influence, just because. Well, just because you like someone, you get along with someone, it kind of
right,
inspire. I don't know, it can inspire you in a different way.
yeah.
But cool. So this is gee, when did you graduate? Uh,
Oh
07?
seven, but I
Oh
stayed.
seven.
I stayed for an extra year, and I did that both in my undergrad and master's. So I basically did 8 years of college in a row. So I stayed for fifth year there, just taking lessons, playing orchestra, chamber music, and then I went. I went to music camp before my right before my senior year in the Netherlands,
Oh,
and I met
cool.
a guy who was my teacher's teacher. His name was Sidney Harth. He was concertmaster of Louisville, Chicago, New York, and LA.
Mm,
And it's just had done everything on
right.
violin and conducting and in his career. I met him when he was 81 in the Netherlands, and so he was teaching at Duquesne. I didn't know the program at the time. I asked him to tell me about Duquesne. Um, I so he was just really wonderful. And he invited me to come and audition there. I auditioned at a couple other programs for my master's, but I ended up going there. I got a full ride, and I was actually basically his last student. He died
Oh,
in 2011. I went and did a master's with him.
I think I
Um,
remember that. Yeah, I remember this.
so sorry, I don't remember what you originally asked, but that
Uh,
he was.
no, it's things go every which way, but yeah, he was a big influence on you,
Yeah, so
and
here's the reason
he
I
got
moved to.
you
Oh, I moved to Pittsburgh after Madison,
right. So you okay? So
2008, to study with him.
oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's funny. Okay, so I caught you right in 2007. I feel like that's when we kind of reconnected
Hmm.
from not hanging out as much towards the end of high school. And yeah, this is when I first got my acoustic guitar. I was trying to do this, I don't know what it was, outlaw country thing or something. But
It's cool, man.
we recorded, I don't know, a handful of songs. I want to say like 5 or 6.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I don't feel too crazy about them because of my vocals, but once again it was cool to like collaborate and do
It
something
was.
original. And I could tell you. I mean, I never recorded violin before, so that was a whole other thing. But it seemed like you had I don't know, just had more experience, obviously, than if obviously we would have done something like that in high school. I probably wouldn't have been doing the same stuff, but it was
Yeah, man.
cool.
It's like
But
it
that's
was.
interesting. I caught you like right when you graduated there, and then the next year you took off, or you went to school in Pittsburgh
Yeah,
or
yeah,
outside of. Was it closer to? No, I used to meet you in Erie. That's right. Okay,
yeah.
cool.
We
So
met
yeah,
in Erie a couple times.
2007, 2008, we collaborated a little. Matt was kind enough to play a couple bop shows with me,
That
jam
was
there.
great,
I
and
think
I
I
loved
think
it.
one of those you even jam bass for like a song or
That's
two.
right. I remember that. Yeah,
And then okay, so then you go to Pittsburgh, and how long are you there? So you're
I
collaborating with
was.
even more artists there, and
Yeah, that's when I feel like I really started to work. I mean, I had a lot of professional stuff in Madison, but I feel like that's when I really started to learn how to be a professional in music.
right.
So I was there till 2014. I finished a master's in 2010, and I wanted to keep taking lessons from Cindy Harth. I was just
Right.
getting so much out of it, and I had started viola at the end of my master's. So I stayed for an
Okay.
extra year at Duquesne, and I continued violin and viola lessons, played orchestra, chamber music. Sydney Hart passed away that year. I got a little more serious about viola. I started auditioning for some local orchestras on viola. I had been playing with a few, but then shortly after that, it's around like, yeah, right around 2010 or 11, I started playing principal viola of Johnstown Symphony and then also Altoona. And then I was
Hmm.
playing with like a whole circuit, like maybe around 10 orchestras in the area, sometimes only once a year, sometimes regularly, from like um, in the Pittsburgh, like greater area, Johnstown, Altoona, Youngstown, Wheeling, Westmoreland, Erie. kind of just in my car a lot. And I started teaching. I had this cool job. It's called City Music Center out of Duquesne University, and started to get some more serious students there. And then I got interested in jazz. I started playing a hot club group and just started doing a lot of different stuff. At the same time, like second year after my master's, I started this job in the summers working at music festivals in Europe. It was a classical festival. I did that for 7 summers, and then I've started my own, which is coming up on the 5th summer now, which is crazy. It's like 12 summers in a row, or 11 summers I've been going to Europe. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. So wait, so the Pittsburgh scene kind of got you into the jazz more, or like was it a certain band, or you went to like a jazz open
Pittsburgh
jam?
scene got me into like everything, man. It was
you were doing stuff like songwriters, indie rock stuff. I remember.
I actually was basically the on-call fiddle guy for 1 or 2 record companies. They would call me to record when bands would come in. I think I had recorded for maybe 15, maybe 20 bands during my time there, which was really only the second half that I did that, maybe 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
But
what got you to the jazz aspect of it? Was that clubs or?
I've always been fascinated. I've always wanted to do it. I lived in a really cool neighborhood. I lived in 2 neighborhoods in Pittsburgh, Friendship and then Lawrenceville. And in Lawrenceville, now it's been kind of over gentrified and stuff. That time when I lived there was like another renaissance starting to happen. There were 2 or 3 jazz jams, like basically on my street. I could just walk to weekly, and I would just go and listen to these people. They were just blowing my mind. And there was so much great live music. And I started playing gigs with some of these people, whether it was like musical theater or like a tango band where I had everything written out, but they were specialists in jazz. So I was kind of fascinated by them. And I knew blues because of the bluegrass stuff and improvising a little bit. So I remember I was at a chamber. I used to go to these chamber music parties with a retired Pittsburgh Symphony member, Roy. And I remember one time we were reading, there was top freelancers and even some PSO people there. We were reading a quartet, and afterwards he played some little blues lick. And then I responded to him, and then we were kind of like, wait, you play non-classical? And then we started talking. He was in this hot club group, and he's like, well, Matt, he was in his 60s then. He's like, Matt, I started improvising when I was 50. And for me, it's difficult. Like I have to almost write down everything I do. So after, I don't know, maybe 6 months, I got a call from this band. They were like, Roy had suggested that we call you. It's just becoming a little too much for him. And so I started playing with them. And then meanwhile, in my trips to Europe, I met some people there that were influential on me. And I just started getting some opportunities here and there. I mean, I still have so much to learn in jazz.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Would you say scratch my eye too. The biggest, would you say like a big influence, or maybe the appeal or the attraction of jazz is just the the improvising.
Yeah, it's just like a complete.
It.
I mean, it's not
going
a
off
complete
the
freedom
cuff.
because it's improvising within a set of parameters. That's really what it is. But it's like,
which could be broad though.
What?
Which could be broad within itself, obviously.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just fascinating to me, like the level of theory you have to know, and to be able to like instantaneously compose music on the spot, to know what to do.
Yeah, that's impressive.
I had kind of done that a little bit, when I started playing with the singer-songwriters and even some of the punk rock groups on violin and viola, or doing recording projects with indie rock groups. Many times they didn't have stuff written out, and they're like, well, it's just kind of, it's an A chord, and then it's a D7, and then it's G. And it's like,
figure it out.
I just had to like kind of make up a line, and I started to learn, how to listen and play within that. But starting to study and learn a little bit more of jazz is like a whole other level, and learning about harmony and all that stuff. So, yeah,
that's cool, man. It can get so complicated. But then also, in a sense, even the blues-based, oh, God, we got some bad rappers going on here. Cool. So you say that, the Pittsburgh scene, or just your experience there? You were there for 4 years or a little longer?
Six
years. Okay. And so you're doing viola now. You're getting into jazz more. You're playing. Well, if you're recording with professional bands or in a professional studio, you're doing more professional work that way. So it's like, it's just like another step in your evolution going on. Okay, so then what's like a great highlight? Is that when you did you do Carnegie when you were in Pittsburgh, or was that?
I did. I got to play a chamber music concert. It was connected through this music festival I was working for in the summer. So I played this 40-minute string sextet in Carnegie Hall. It was like in 2013 with so I was the second viola to my teacher, who was fourth chair in the Pittsburgh Symphony. It was a big deal.
Awesome.
That was really exciting for me. And I got to do some other really cool stuff then. Like, I think it was 2011. It did like a 1-week tour with an orchestra. Technically it was Young Sound Symphony, but it was a lot of freelancers from Pittsburgh and Cleveland. We did a 1-week tour with Barry Manilow. And then I started playing some festivals here and there. I got connected with like a Beatles cover band circuit.
I remember that.
Shows with them in Canada. We did a festival in Louisville. There was some really cool highlights during that time. And then just starting to make the connections in Europe.
That happened like 2009, I want to say? You said 11 years? Is that
I started going to Europe in 2009. And then like 2012, I met a German jazz guitarist there. And then he kind of introduced me to a network of people. 2013, 14, 15, he invited me to come and play with his band. We're like a featured artist at like a Jazzstadt Stuttgart. It was like a jazz festival in Stuttgart. And then I got to play some jazz clubs there and a bunch of other smaller towns in southern Germany. There's this really good jazz guitarist that came through and saw us. We met him. We saw his band. They saw us from Berlin, Uli Hofmeyer. And my buddy that hooked all this stuff up originally, his name is Michael Herwig. So Uli was kind of one of his mentors. Uli came through and saw me play, and then he invited me to play with his band in Berlin the next summer. That was huge for me.
Wow, dude.
So we played at one of the best jazz clubs in Europe. I mean, it's this place called B-Flat in Berlin, with a little hot club group, Premier Swingtet. And I got to play a couple shows with them in Berlin. So there were a lot of exciting things happening. I was kind of at certain points, like leading up to starting. So 2014 is when I left Pittsburgh. Leading up to starting my doctorate, life got like kind of crazy at times. Like I felt like there were so many things coming. I couldn't keep up with them, or I didn't know what was next. I was just in my car a lot, like driving from gig to gig.
I remember that.
Yeah, I used to play
every time I talk to you, you'd be in your car.
Yeah, I used to play with the Pops Orchestra here and there that would travel. We played some shows in Atlantic City, and it's like there were a lot of cool, really cool things happening. When I moved to Lansing, I did a doctorate there. How are we doing with time, by the way?
We could do like another 20 minutes, but
cool.
Yeah, okay. So let's see. So by the end of Pittsburgh, before you went to Lansing, Michigan for more school, this is when you started to get the experience with the European festival scene. And now, was it like right then when you came up with the Class Festival idea, or is it when you got to Michigan? That's what I was kind of curious about.
Yeah, so I was just getting to that. I moved to Michigan to do a doctorate at Michigan State on viola.
Right.
And I during that time when I was there, like I didn't really know anyone.
This was 2014 or 15?
14. I knew my teacher and a couple other people. And it was the same thing when I came to Pittsburgh. And it's like by the time I left, like I had this community of incredible network of people that I still stay in touch with. And I think that's been one of my strengths as a musician, being able to connect with people and like create a community and network. So
and the ability to start over each place and rebuild. That's a skill in itself, man, for sure.
Definitely. And you're really good at that as well.
Everywhere's different, but thank you.
Yeah.
Some places are more challenging, as you might know.
Yeah.
Like maybe Michigan.
Yeah. So Michigan for me, it was interesting because I was in big metro area, Pittsburgh, and then going to Michigan State, Lansing. For me, it was like there was this Michigan State bubble, and then the rest of Lansing, there wasn't a lot going on. Just there wasn't as much going on as in Pittsburgh.
Mm.
So it was different, and I didn't have as many opportunities at first. I had to work for the opportunities I had around there, but I had a falling out with the guy I worked for the summer festival, and at the same time, that one of the cities we were in, Arcidoso, Italy, they approached me, the mayor, and some of the other people there about helping them start a jazz festival because they knew been getting into jazz. I had planned some informal stuff at their festival the last couple summers at the classical thing. So I came up
Whoa.
with this idea about class, and the focus was really on training classically trained instrumentalists how to improvise through the context of jazz. Now, it includes like a wide array of things. It's basically, I mean, all encompassing all genres, but just like kind of creating freedom in music. Because,
That's
and
awesome.
I was really interested in this because I felt like I had all these experiences, but most of them weren't through some kind of formal thing. It's like, I learned bluegrass playing on the street. I learned jazz from meeting three guys in their 50s who have been playing together for 3 decades in their garage. It's like
Right, right,
I
yeah.
it's like I sought out some of these things in school. I mean, luckily enough, I was able to take like a semester of jazz lessons from Rodney Whitaker, who played bass in Jazz at Lincoln Center when I was in Michigan State. But a lot of times it was very odd to be some kind of improvising violinist or a violinist who was playing non-classical. It's
So in a s-
becoming more and more regular now.
so in a sense, you could have stuck to the more classical path, but you kind of chose to go into these different outlets with jazz or bluegrass and what have you. And I mean, almost in a sense, maybe the people you're trying to attract, the classical musicians, maybe they have stayed more on the classical path. So you're like, hey, let's what do you call it? Like fusion, kind of like a
Right,
fusion
right.
thing. So that's cool because it's almost like you're trying to, through your experience, you're trying to like show classically trained musicians that they could have a similar thing or give
Yeah,
them
I
more
mean,
freedom. Like you said, it truly is in a sense.
yeah, I mean, like playing bluegrass and playing jazz, like that influences how I approach my classical music still. And it's
Right.
like
Yeah.
I'm always like hungry to learn new things. So like I just started playing mariachi in September because like it just really feeds my like artistic spirit. It's like I just want to learn as much as I can. I
Hmm.
jokingly call myself the jack of all trades, master of none, because it's like I do a lot of different things, but I like it's like
Ah, you're the
I feel like
master
the more you
of.
know, the less you know, right?
I
Yeah.
think you're the master at
No,
what you do with music. I think you have a
appreciate
master ears. You have master ears. That's we can at least say that. You got to work at that shit. Like we were talking about that earlier. Just kind of you almost subconsciously discipline your ears, and you're on a whole nother level with that though, 'cause especially with jazz and like you're just saying, the ability to improvise a scale and to be that in your intonations right, and even like what you said, composing something on the spot. Like maybe anyone can do that, but not everyone does it good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Composing a cool lick right there. Like you could be in tune, you could be in the key or the scale, but
right, right.
what are you actually doing with it? Anyone can
Well,
just
there are some
wah,
days
wah.
where I don't do things so cool too. So it's like it's a
Right.
constant learning curve. Yeah.
I thought
What? So I'm sorry to keep asking you because I got this audition coming. What
it's
time
like
is it exactly?
it's 1:05, so you want to do like
Okay.
15 more minutes and just make sure the last like 5. Well, we're already kind of plugging the class, but if you want to like get any more specific about this summer, the dates, whatever, if you got all that, do you have that planned out yet or no?
Yeah, man.
I figured you did. So yeah, like even this could be its own clip, like a little intro, or I don't
No,
even have to
I
be
mean
in it.
this. I'll link the website down below. We got a really cool promo video. So yeah, we're kind of in the thick of that right now. Early bird applications are due on February 15th, which just means there's no application fee. We're gonna have some crazy people there this summer. All variety of styles: classical, jazz, Afro-Cuban, Indian, Arabic.
Nice.
It's just every summer I feel so inspired by all that's going on there with just all these musicians from all different backgrounds, different countries, different parts of the
Yeah.
world. And it's just incredible collaborations that happen. So,
Dude, I can
um,
only imagine. And
yeah. And
I'm
it's
sure
it,
it
for me, it's like really, it's a labor of love because it's not like I'm like doing this to like make a lot of money. As a matter of fact, I've lost a little bit, but
right.
it's
Well,
become like a part of me. Like I feel like it's a mission. I have to do it because there's not really any other music festival around like this that trains you how to do several different styles at once.
well, and like you said, even if it's not always profitable, and like you've told me, it gets a little better each year in that
Yeah.
matter. But you're making an impression on people, man. Like
Thanks.
you're putting your own as is I can't talk, but as much as it's important to you, it's probably that much equally as important to the people you host it for. You know what I'm saying? Because like you said, like where else can you do something like that? And that's really cool and it's really original, man. I mean, I hope you continue to do that, and maybe a decade from now you will be making the big bucks. You'll be like, all I do is class, man. I don't even work the rest of the year.
No, no way. I just, yeah, it's just, doing, and that's why you're doing what you do now. It's like the more you tap into the things that you love and that like just excite you creatively, like eventually it's going to be successful. And whether
Yeah.
that's like through a lot of money or whatever, that doesn't really matter to me. It's just about being happy and like feeling gratified in your work.
And I think that's a huge part. I mean, you could say with musicians, but just artists in general, is that you can make a living and make a money off of it, but it has to kind of like satisfy your soul in a sense, or
Right.
still be appealing to you because it is art, or it is music. And I would assume, myself included, sometimes you don't always play the most appealing gigs, but you got to make
Yeah.
money, you got to live. But
Yeah.
to have something like that, your outlet you created on your own, more importantly, is it's really cool, and it seems like you're really dedicated to it. And like you said, it's a big part of who you are now.
Thanks, man.
And I think it's a really cool. It's like just the brief history we just did on you. It seems like it's something that evolved into itself, because like as you came from classical and got into your own backgrounds, and then jazz, probably one of the most complicated modern music, closest to classical. Then coincidentally it evolves into a festival that's the fusion of both. It's really cool, man. It seems
Thanks.
like it's meant to be, bro.
Thanks.
Come on.
But
Okay.
yeah, I'm actually I teach these music business classes. We're reading this book. It's a great book. It's called The Entrepreneurial Artist by Aaron Dworkin. He runs Sphinx.
Oh,
And
nice.
so we just read 2 chapters yesterday, one about Jeff Daniels, the actor, and one about Bill T. Jones, the choreographer. And the link about both of them is like they created their own creative sandbox generally. Jeff Daniels in Michigan created his own theater to start actually doing screenwriting and playwriting on his own. And they do their own
Right.
shows there. And then Bill T. Jones created his own dance company in New York. And they
That
were
is
both talking about how that like helped them in their success. And like they were able to experiment creatively there. And then I came to this realization. It's like class is like my big like creative sandbox. It's like,
Oh, dude, 100%.
so, and I think like having
It's
an
your
outlet
baby.
like that as a musician, as a creator is like really important.
Well, and I think that's that's what can kind of fuel us to keep doing, especially if you can do it independently and on your, because you're your own boss in this sense. Like you're controlling it.
Yeah.
It's your project. You know what I'm saying? And I think that just goes a long way, and it just comes back to even more freedom. You have freedom in not only what you're playing, but like how you run this festival, how you promote it, how you want it to come off. And yeah, that's I'd probably like that book, man. That seems like really inspirational because
It's a great book. Yeah, I've got some cool books we're doing with our students here. That's one of them. That's one of the newest books on the market. And Aaron Dworkin, if you don't know, you should check out his group, Sphinx. It's a company. It's a business. It's the
Oh, cool.
primary influence in diversity in classical music.
Oh,
promoting
cool.
Black and Latino classical musicians. So
Nice.
just trying to create some more diversity in like generally a very overly white field, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. Awesome, man. Well, yeah, and that's it's good to always meet other musicians. Well, not meet. Hey, I just met you. No. It's good to know other musicians who kind of just like I don't know, just have that drive to want to do it in an independent way. You know what I mean? Because I feel
Yeah.
like as musicians, we can all kind of take, I don't know, like easier jobs or easier outlets. But it's not always what, like you're saying, what it doesn't always gratify you. It doesn't always
Right.
move you. You know what I'm saying? So if you can be successful, whatever that means, with something that you truly love, that can just go, so much more of a long way than, I don't know, being financially successful or what have you. And not to say that you aren't, but yeah, I mean, I think class is going to continue to grow, and hopefully
Thanks.
I'll be out in Italy eventually. I'll come check it out one summer, man. I mean,
Yeah.
we're most likely going to Italy in the winters, but it doesn't mean anything.
You know, one of our grade school buddies is out there. Bianca McKelvey lives out in Italy now.
What part?
I
She's cool.
forget. We talked briefly. I want to say it's south of Tuscany, like maybe more central Italy, or even
That's
even
where Allegra's father's from, central,
Yep.
outside of Naples.
Yeah.
But cool. All right. Well, we somewhat got to wrap this up. Okay, so yeah, well, briefly, I caught you again. You actually reminded me of this in 2013. I had this opportunity to collaborate with the March. Well, to do a song for the March Against Monsanto folks when the whole anti-GMO movement was going on, all the protests. And somehow, I don't even know how we caught each other. We were just in Beloit at the same time. Neither of us were living there. And it was 2013, and we recorded the song "The March." Matt did these awesome, like 4 layers of violin tracks.
I added a little bit, man. It was your tune. It was like great.
I think that one really brought it home. It's just like that brought it to the next level. But thank you.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
No, it's like one of the things that I've always respected about your music is that you've always been very thoughtful with your lyrics and your subject matter that you write about, and you're trying to like reach out to these social issues that we all need to be aware of. Like, so at that time, it's like, and it still is an issue, Monsanto, right? And you wrote another song about how bees are dying off, and like how important they are to everything that happens in nature. And it's like, it's very prevalent issues, and I really respect you for that.
Thanks, man. Well, and that one came about pretty naturally, because I feel like I was just kind of getting into more of a natural and organic lifestyle anyways, and respecting the environment. And it was crazy because I sent them this other older song I had, and they liked it and whatnot. And then it was like, you know what? I think I could write one just specifically for this. And I wrote that song in like 2 minutes, like literally. It was like, it was just, I don't know. It was the right place at the right time. And I swear to God, you were there like within a week or something of me writing it. I'm like, hey, man, you want to do this? And it at the time, it was one of my biggest songs, like something that I didn't promote. And the March Against Monsanto folks promoted it all. And it got quite a bit of plays and downloads.
I mean, how many marches did you perform at after that?
I've performed at, I performed at Knoxville, Tennessee, and Duluth, Minnesota, the same year, 2013. Then Santa Rosa, California, San Francisco, and Denver, Colorado. So I performed at 5 in 4 years. And it was like each one, they all kind of like knew me through that song. So it was like, hell yeah, you could perform at our march. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, if I had any sort of like fan base through that, it was like through those protests. You know what I'm saying? So that was really cool. And then, then again, we collaborated a few years later in 2016. Like I was saying, you did about half the songs on my Good Spirit album.
Was that where we met for that Grandma's Wine Bar Deli show also?
I think that was the same year. I don't know if it was the same. It was around the same time.
Like, we've known each other our whole lives, and I at that point, I think I hadn't seen you in like 6 months or a year. And literally I showed up and I didn't know any of the tunes, and we just started playing together. And like,
it sounded great.
Of them, like those are 2 of my favorite collaborations, the 2 videos you put up from that show, actually.
Okay.
Like the
In Your Own Hell Now and Shady Bone.
It was like the first time I had heard it, and we're just
Yeah.
start playing.
I know, dude. That was really cool. Yeah, I think that was probably first, and then like a month later, we recorded some of those tracks in the studio. But I really love what you did on the song "In the Mountains." Like, I think you just crushed that song.
Thanks, man.
And overall, it had a lot of energy in it. From whatever I did. Oh, I lost you.
I got a low battery thing. Okay.
Oh shit. Well, we'll wrap it up soon. Yeah. So. No, I thought it was great what you did on that tune, and that one again got a lot more attention and whatnot. But yeah, man, it's always awesome to collaborate with you. That was a little different studio setup than we were used to, but we made it work. But yeah, man, those are just some brief things. I hope to record more with you in the future.
Definitely,
and trying to get more and more professional.
We're young.
You come out here sometime, man. This is my home studio. We'd come out here and just be comfortable.
I would love to. I haven't been to
Vermont
ever, really. I mean, just across to a gas station one time. Yeah, but I'd love to do some stuff out there. It would be fun.
You're a busy guy. I know you are. But yeah, so let's briefly. So you came up with the class idea in 2015. You spoke with the mayor and everything was happening. And you were in Michigan till 2018?
Fall of 2018. So I just moved to St. Louis. I'm in my second year. I got my first real big boy job. Basically from the time I left high school to now, I've basically been a freelancer. I've had teaching positions here and there, even some adjunct work at some colleges, and some orchestra jobs, but mostly regional stuff. And it's not full-time. So this is my first full-time job.
And you've been consistently been in school all those years since high school as well, for the most part.
13 of 16 years, basically. Oh, it was something like that, yeah.
Wow.
But yeah.
So now you got your first job, St. Louis, Missouri. You liking it?
I love it, man. So I'm at Webster University. I teach violin, viola, music business, a little bit of improv and chamber music, and I love this place. There's so much going on with music and the arts here. Awesome. It's a little warmer than every other place I've ever lived.
Hell yeah. You're right in that good central zone. Not too much snow, not too hot like Louisiana or something. But
yeah, it's great.
That's cool, man. And from when I went to St. Louis, I just remember they got that like river culture that's kind of associated with New Orleans. Like they have that good, I don't know what you call it, like almost like a Cajun vibe or a Zydeco. You seen a lot of that or not been out? Not had a chance to go. I just remember playing a specific club.
As much, but there's definitely some they're very it's one of the most historical cities in the Midwest, right? Because it's like the Louisiana Purchase. Same with New Orleans. It's there are stuff here that dates back to the 1700s, and I would say that a lot of St. Louisans are very proud of their history and culture here for the U.S. And it's there's a lot of cool stuff here. Yeah.
So now you're there for 2 years now, and you've been continuing to do your class festival. Each year gets a little more students, or you kind of cap it at a certain number? Or?
Each year a little more students, but we're not trying to make it into some monster mammoth. We just basically were able to fill out a full orchestra last year, strings, brass, strings, winds, and percussion, and we're slowly starting to add some brass. We also trying to build up piano and voice numbers. So
awesome. Well, if you want to give some more information on this year's festival and promote your stuff, man, the class.
I mean, I guess I kind of did before. It's July 25th through August 8th in Arcidoso, Italy. There's just all kinds of incredible artists, Grammy nominees, award winners, high-level professional orchestra players, soloists, people that play all different styles, classical, jazz, Indian, Arabic, Afro-Cuban. We got a featured tango group this summer, bluegrass. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. And part of what I do during the year, it's I'll just give you a brief synopsis of what I have coming up. It all kind of relates to what I do at class. It's a variety of things. So, a week from today, I'm playing a Forsyth viola concerto with St. Louis Civic, and then in 2 weeks we're doing a faculty concert at Webster, and it's called Improvisational Elements, and that's with like jazz faculty and composition faculty. And we're doing some different combinations of music and elements at that concert. And then let's see, I'm doing a concert of new music, mostly for a music publisher in town here on March 1st. And then I'm playing another concerto on March 15th. And then we got some later this spring, I'm going to start my own hot club group here.
What?
Gypsy Jazz, Hot Club of Webster, with 3 jazz faculty from Webster University. So,
dude,
yeah.
So you're never not busy.
No, and there's always mariachi stuff coming up. A lot of things.
Oh,
yeah,
that's cool. And what about I take it you're in Europe longer than the festival. Are you playing anywhere else out there in the summer?
Actually, I'm in the plans right now I'm organizing a couple things in Germany right now. Possible couple jazz shows and maybe chamber music in Berlin. Still kind of in the planning phases right now.
Right on. Cool, man. Yeah, a lot of stuff kind of gets planned for the summer when it's
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great talking to you. We can always do it again, and
it was
later
a lot
down
of fun.
the line. Yeah, man, for sure. It's good to catch up, and I just like communicating this way. It's kind of we used to Skype all the time, anyways. But most people, don't always get the chance to, So people, I actually did one with Sam, so which
That's
is
right.
It was really crazy because you were saying you're getting into all this Indian and African stuff, and it's like he is too. So
that's awesome.
Dude, Sam's on a whole other level of listening. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
Sam always influenced me with a lot of different styles of music, for sure. Also,
well, he was so spoiled with his parents from very classic songwriters, not classical, but just rich in that background. So I feel like he's evolved in his own right as a fan, an avid fan. All right, brother. It's good talking to you.
You too.
Everyone, this is Matt Pickart. This is Music, the Universal Language Podcast. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Peace.
Peace.
Good seeing you, brother. Talk to you soon.